Well, good evening, little masters, and welcome to episode 210 of the Prancing Pony Podcast, where we've ridden as fast as we can from Helm's Deep and can report that the orcs have discovered a new forest and ask themselves, "Hey, what's this thing?
I wonder if it will be friends with me."
No, it won't.
No, it won't.
But while they're getting acquainted, we've got some time here live with all of you. So without further delay, I'm Shawn Marchese, the real-life Lord of the Mark, and I'm here with the man of the West, who is mighty in wizardry, Alan Sisto.
Thank you, Shawn. Folks, we are coming to you today from, well, our booth as usual, but today we're in our booths attending the first ever PPP Moot happening online right now.
Truly a dream come true for Alan and me. We've got something like 400 listeners and fans joining us from 27 countries around the world for this online event. And we hope it's been as memorable for all of you as it has for for us. And it's only half over.
That's right.
I'm just flabbergasted.
I know.
Confusticated.
I love that word. And bebothered? Are you bebothered? Because I am.
I am bebothered. Yep.
Now, those of you who've been following us for a long time know that it is a tradition for me and Shawn to record a live episode whenever we're together at a moot. We did it first at Myth Moot 5 in 2018. And then that feels like a lot longer than that, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Then we presented the keynote at TextMoot 2019, and then again when we did our episode at Tolkien 2019 in Birmingham. So it's really only fitting that we record a live episode here at our very own, first of hopefully many, moots for the PPP community.
Yeah. Now, for those of you listening to this podcast in the future and joining us for the first time, welcome. Here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, we are working our way through J.R.R. Tolkien's Legendarium, a few pages at a time.
Now, we usually study the details, make connections to other writings, talk about our favorite themes.
And we usually have a lot of fun along the way with the help of our amazing community of listeners. Well, we're still having fun today, but things are just a little bit different. And we're glad you found us, and we hope that you're looking forward to joining that community.
Indeed, we do. But because we enjoy hanging out with our listeners so much, today we are not reading from the chapter. Instead, we are joined online by... 338 people currently at the moment of our Moot attendees.
Wow.
For a live Q&A session. So let's get into it. But no, folks, we're still not open for questions.
Not quite. We're almost there. We got a couple things to say.
It's like the lines at Disneyland. People are just like clamoring at the ropes trying to get in.
They're like, oh, I think I'm almost there. I think I'm almost at the boarding dock. And then you realize, no, you've got to go way around.
There's a whole nother queue.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, when we've done this in the past, normally we'd spend a little time at the beginning introducing ourselves, talking about the podcast, how we got started, what our approach is, who we are, all that kind of stuff that we would normally do for people who aren't familiar with us.
Right, but that's when we're guests at somebody else's moot and trying to introduce ourselves to a new audience. I think, not to be too Feanorian about it, that you all probably know who we are and what the Prancing Pony Podcast is all about.
Yeah, I mean, like, for example, I'm sure everybody out there knows about my tendency to talk about obscure word origins for kind of twice as long as anyone cares about them, certainly Alan.
Yeah, and my seemingly random movie and TV references.
Or my standing of Earendil.
Unhealthy standing, I might add.
It's
bordering on it, at least.
Sure, all right,
fine. Just get you to admit that. Or how about my maybe unusual or compulsive ability to bring Feanor up when he's not mentioned just so I can get a whack at the piñata?
Why not? Or your inability to stop yourself ruining the mood of a great reading with an inappropriate 70s rock lyric. Usually Kansas.
Or your terrible puns. Oh, yes. Carry on my wayward son. I'm never going to live that one
Or
down.
you pretending not to like my bad puns. But look.
Fair enough.
We do some things well, too. Like, Alan, your incredible gift for bringing characters to life with your voice. Man, there is no other Gandalf for me now, I got to say.
Oh, thank
You're
you.
It.
Well,
that's it.
There's no other Gollum for me now but yours. So
well, thank you.
I get it.
Thank
you.
And folks, hopefully you've all enjoyed some of this stuff too. And hopefully you've enjoyed learning along with us as we've gained some new insights from reading Tolkien's texts again for the nth time, taking the scenic route and giving it the full Prancing Pony Podcast treatment.
Now, you've probably gotten to know us pretty well after some 500 hours of podcasts. But honestly, if there's something you don't know about us, now's your chance to ask.
Yeah, because unlike all of our other moot appearances we've done in the past, at this one, we're not interviewing any of the special guests, mainly because we're the ones who invited them, and we figure they've already done us a big enough favor by just showing up.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Which means, though, that this Q&A session is all about giving you a chance to ask a question of us. Now, it's a little bit like one of our Questions After Nightfall episodes, only with, I don't know, like 30 times as many people.
What could possibly go wrong? Don't answer that, actually.
No, that is a rhetorical question, please.
But truly, I mean, staggering attendance at this event, and I'm so glad so many of you could make it to this session particularly.
Yeah.
Alan, when we started this show, I never imagined that just over 5 years later, we'd be here doing this or anything like this.
Not a clue. 5 years, over 200 episodes, and 10,000 listeners, something like 2.4 million downloads later. It's been humbling. Exciting, but humbling.
Yeah. And you folks know who've been with us the whole time. We've covered the Silmarillion. We've covered the Hobbit. Now we're almost halfway through Lord of the Rings, and now it's our first Moot. It's amazing. I'm just totally over the moon.
Absolutely. If you're over the moon, though, when you land, please don't let the One Ring slip on your finger.
That would not be good.
That would not be bad. But none of this would be possible without you, our listeners. And of course, those 400 of you who registered to attend this Moot. So thank you all. But we also want to give special thanks to our keynote speakers, Amy Sturgis and Michael Drought, as well as our special guests, Tom Shippey and Bill Fliss.
And we also want to thank all of our presenters and all the folks facilitating our social events. We also want to thank our volunteers, that's our rangers, and our Owley's Little Helpers.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, a huge thank you to our sponsors, the Tolkien Bookshelf and Mythology Candles.
Absolutely. And an even bigger thanks to our entire PPP team, but especially our event and Patreon community coordinator, Katie McKenna, without whom none of this would be happening today.
And our producer, Jordan Rennells, who's moderating this event today, and as Alan said earlier, has the unenviable task of putting it all together later. But he always makes it sound easy, so thank you, Jordan. Now, folks, I know you want to get into the Q&A quickly and have a chance to ask us your questions, but I've got another stall tactic first. First, it's time for us to do an intro segment that we've never done before.
That's right.
This week in Prancing Pony Podcast history.
Well, we are recording this on May 15th, and the episode is going to release very quickly on May 23rd. So where was the Prancing Pony Podcast this week in previous years? Well, on May 22nd, 2016, we were just getting to Chapter 3 of the Quenta Silmarillion and the awakening of the elves at Cuiviénen in Episode 11, Elves and All, Hooray!
I remember it fondly. We were just kind of starting to hit our stride then. I think it was episode 10. That was our episode on Death as Iluvatar's Gift to Men. And that was really the first time we took a long digression into a specific topic. And now it's like, well, we do that every week, I think. But
well, yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah. A year later, on May 21st, 2017, believe it or not, we were still in the Quenta Silmarillion.
Yeah.
We were up to chapter 23 with episode 41, Make It So. And that was the first part of our two-part episode on Tuor and the Fall of Gondolin.
Oh, my goodness. You know, it took us longer to get through that book, first off, because we were still bi-weekly at the time. We had not yet started our Patreon campaign, and our foolishly optimistic decision to set Go Weekly as our first goal, which we blew through really quickly.
We really did, yeah.
We did. But I do remember very clearly recording that night. We had decided pretty much the last minute to do 2 episodes on Tuor so that we could bring in the stuff from Unfinished Tales.
Yeah, because there's a lot of cool stuff there. I mean, there's like that whole Conan the Barbarian backstory. There's the Varanwe stuff. You've got the 7 Gates, which is all amazing. And we knew we wanted to bring that in.
Oh, yeah. How could you not? If you're going to talk about Tuor, you got to at least, that's important, crucial stuff. So we ended up recording both of those episodes in the same night. Now, the thing is, it came out to 4 hours of podcasts that we recorded that night, but that took us 5 hours to record. And we were starting later in those days. I think we were starting at 8 or 8:15. I don't even remember, that's Pacific time, what time we finished up. But I got to say, it was at least 1 or 2 in the morning, my time.
I don't think I got to bed until 4 a.m. Central Time.
Yeah, that'd be 2 for me,
Yeah, but I didn't mind because I knew, like, next time we were talking about Eärendil, so I was like, it's fine. Get through this. Yeah, I know I'm predictable, but, hey, I was like, get through it. We're gonna get to Eärendil soon.
That's right. Well, a year later, in May of 2018, May 20th, we were releasing podcasts weekly by then, and we were well into The Hobbit. That was when we got to chapter 16, and we saw Bilbo abscond with the Arkenstone to Bard and the Elven King in episode 83. Oh, yes, he's very nice.
What an outrageous accent. Yeah, that was the season when somebody actually dared us to do an entire season of Monty Python-inspired episode titles.
Yeah,
we came really close, actually, in season 2.
We did.
I think the only reason we didn't, we actually took a break with some bear-themed titles.
Oh, yeah.
In the middle of the season. with the Beorn stuff.
The Bare Necessities and all of that. Yeah.
And then we got some Sting song titles in when Bilbo met Sting. The Sword, not Gordon Sumner.
Well, yeah, that would have been interesting to meet Gordon Sumner in Mirkwood, but that is a joke that never gets old.
Well, maybe.
Well, if it's gotten old, nobody stopped us. So there's that. But all of that, by the way, interestingly enough, was before we had ever met in person. We did not meet in person until a few weeks after that at Myth Moot 5 when we recorded episode 88. Man, that was fun.
I will never forget that because I remember everyone kept asking me that whole Myth Moot, like, hey, so do you guys actually get along in person? Like everybody thought like the band was going to break up when we were actually in a room together for the first time.
Like I'm going to walk in with Yoko Ono on my arm. It's going to be over.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, honestly, we'd spent like hours together each week for 2 years. We pretty much knew each other.
I think we were going to be all right. That was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun.
I remember you'd gotten there first, and I remember walking into that little pub or little tavern or whatever underneath. I was like, oh, hey, Shawn, how's it going?
There he is. Yeah. It's like, I know you. I know you from pictures. I know you from the internet. Yeah.
Hey, man, what's up?
Yeah.
It was totally low key. It was great.
It was great. Let's see. What was the following year? So May 19th, 2019.
Yeah.
We released episode 125, A Writer and Arranger, because after a season's worth of Monty Python.
Yeah, I'm singing the song, man. Yeah.
We had to get into some Rush.
We had to.
By that time, we were well into book 1 of Lord of the Rings, and Frodo and his friends were at the real Prancing Pony, meeting a fellow named Strider.
He might be a play-acting spy.
He might.
That was an extra long episode, though. I remember that because that was the one where we included our review of the Dome Karakovsky film Tolkien, the biopic, which we recorded after the main episode and attempted to insert it as a brief intro to our chapter discussion.
An hour later, we realized
that was not brief.
Capturing our opinions about that movie briefly was not going to happen. But
not
no regrets.
None. Then on May 17th, 2020, believe it or not, online moots were still just a thing people were talking about and not actually doing yet. We were coming off an interview with 4-time guest John Garth about the worlds of J.R.R. Tolkien and coming back to book 2 of The Lord of the Rings with episode 167, You're My Lady, in which the Fellowship came to Carascalathon and Gimli got a little weak in the knees at meeting the lady of the house.
Which, of course, has provided us with no shortage of jokes ever since.
Did you say shortage?
I did.
Was that intentional? Because I just caught that.
Let's go with yes. It was totally intentional.
Fair.
And that brings us to today, May 15th, 2021, the first full day of our first ever PPP Moot.
That's right. And if you're only listening to this in the future instead of live, well, you've missed out on some amazing fun. So please be sure to join us next time. But enough about us. We're going to get to all of you soon and a chance to ask your questions.
That's right. So folks listening at home, in the future, I mean, just like with our Questions After Nightfall episodes, we have no idea what people are going to ask us. Alan and I are going to be answering questions as best we can with the resources available to us right here in our recording nooks.
Yep. And also, like with our Questions After Nightfall episodes, we will be presenting this as it was recorded live. Everything you hear in the show will have been recorded during this session. Now, feel free to ask us anything you want. It is a true AMA. I mean, ask us anything appropriate, I suppose.
Yeah. Anything we're comfortable answering.
Anything within the spirit of the show. You can ask about us personally. You can ask about the podcast. You can ask about where we're headed in the future. You can ask questions about Tolkien if you want, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, you can ask questions about the Legendarium if you guys want to ask us, thoughts on stuff like that, like people do in Barlowman's Bag or Questions After Nightfall. Just keep in mind, we only have, a little over an hour now for questions.
Oh, my.
And anything that's going to take a lot of research, that's not really going to work. So
speculative questions are great. Opinion questions are great. So let's try to stick with those things. But all right, folks, who's first? Go ahead and raise your hands. All right. Marilyn R. Pakila, our research assistant. Fire away with your question for us.
Good evening, gentlemen. Hello, everybody. A while back, Alan read from Tolkien's letter describing the famous trip to Switzerland, which included the phrase, his unmanly knees. Shawn vowed that he was going to save this clip and use it at some point in the future. So my question is, has Shawn ever used this clip as he promised? And if so, when? If not, why not?
That's on you, Shawn. Great one.
Excellent question, Marilyn. I have not used it yet, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to. And yes, I have saved it.
Of course you have. Like I saved the one when you said, okay, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that one. All right. Thank you, Marilyn. That's a great
Thank you,
question.
Marilyn.
All right. Next up, Arthur. Arthur Harrow, welcome.
Hello, thank you very much for this weekend and this opportunity. I am not going to waste your time asking you about trolls being made in mockery of elves and whether that means instead of saying "don't be hasty," they say "please be tasty." Instead, something that came across my mind while I was preparing an article. My quick plug: my first Tolkien article is being published in a book next year.
Oh, that's excellent.
On the topic of Judaism and Tolkien. And one of the things I noticed was that while the elves, their religious practices, talk about the Valar, they sing songs about Elbereth, they don't seem to talk about anyone else. The men of Numenor explicitly worshipped Ilúvatar. But in Middle-earth, we hear Faramir's men invoking the Valar to keep Dumbo the elephant away from them. And Gandalf invokes the Valar at Aragorn's coronation, but you don't hear them talking about Ilúvatar. Is this something changed in Tolkien's thought? Is he saying that men have drifted away, even though they're the ones who are the most closely tied to Ilúvatar, involving their fate? Discuss.
My goodness.
Wow. Normally I would open up the letters and pull up some of the stuff that he said about,
Right.
worship in Middle Earth and things like that. But I don't know that I have time to do that right now. So I'm going to try and answer it quickly. I mean, first thought is I think the elves have a different relationship with the Valar than any men do, because the elves actually have direct experience of them. At least some elves do. And so they would have passed on those stories to the elves who didn't. I've always felt that the reverence, I think, that the elves had for Varda specifically, Elbereth, is just because they're the people of the stars. The stars were the first thing they saw when they woke up. The stars have always been special to them. It's part of their identity. They are the Eldar, the people of the stars. And so I think that's why the reverence for Varda specifically. Whereas men, I don't think that Tolkien was saying that men have kind of drifted off the path from Eru. In fact, I think he probably would say that men do have a very close relationship with Eru, maybe even more so than the elves do, because the elves had direct experience of the Valar, but not of Eru. Men never had direct experience of either of the,
That's correct, right.
the groups of divine beings. And so they're all sort of mythological to men, and they're all based on faith to men. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling now, Alan. I don't know if you got any thoughts on anything I've said.
You're rambling well. I think given the history of Numenor and the fact that the men of Numenor did at least give reverence to Ilúvatar, at the top of the Mental Tarma, suggests that those of that descent, so that would include certainly the Gondorians, would have had an inbuilt reverence for Ilúvatar. But there's so little mention of that explicitly in the first place in terms of even their reverence towards the Valar. I don't think it comes as a surprise that we don't see anything specifically about the creator who is really detached. I mean, I know we talk sometimes about the similarities between the Silmarillion and between Tolkien's worldview of a singular creative god and then these lower gods who, it's like a polytheistic system underneath a monotheistic god. And we've talked about some of those kind of the thoughts that come from that.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to remember that unlike how most folks of faith or many folks of faith might view, many folks of monotheistic faith would view things here, it seems that Middle Earth is very much a deistic world rather than a theistic world. That is to say, Ilúvatar's kind of, not clear, I mean, we certainly see his hand, but he's
kind of taken a step back.
He's taken a step back, right?
He's kind of the watchmaker. Yeah.
Right. He's the watchmaker. And I think, if we look at it through that lens, it's not a surprise that we don't see a lot of worship / reverence towards Ilúvatar.
No, I think that's definitely true. I mean, we see very specifically when Ilúvatar actually does come back into the story at the end of the Akalabaith, right? I mean, we actually see how the Valar lay down their government of Arda, and then Ilúvatar steps in and makes the world round and sinks the island and everything. And so that's a very direct action by a creator god who doesn't usually take direct action.
Right.
Yeah, he usually tends to work through these demiurges that he has in the Valar. And yeah, I think that if there's a difference between the way elves and men sort of see the divine beings of the world, I think it has to do with the fact that the elves do have some direct experience and men do not. But yeah, I think it's very much what you said, Alan, but sort of where Tolkien was kind of going in regards to not having much of a direct divine presence in the story for the most part. All right. Well, our next question is coming to us from Rebecca from Connecticut. Rebecca, go ahead.
So great to be here. So great to see your faces and put them to the voices. So I would like you to speculate a bit about the nature of orcs. Most specifically, what we might loosely call the family life of orcs are there. We know that they breed. We know that there are goblin imps, which implies that there are women orcs, but we don't know anything about them. And also we know that there are things called half orcs. And so but like, how does that happen? And then finally, as another question, I know it's an open question as to whether orcs are corrupted elves or corrupted men, but if they are corrupted elves, do they also have serial longevity?
Oh, wow.
To start, these are questions that Tolkien never came up with definitive answers for. In fact, he spent a lot of time and a lot of ink late in his life working and reworking these questions. But
wow,
doesn't stop us from speculating, does it?
Is this an appropriate time to say bow chicka wow? No,
I think it is an absolutely appropriate time to say that.
Do orcs?
I don't want the image, but I think it's.
No, I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either.
I don't.
You
really
did ask
think
how that happens, and I just have to say, when a mommy orc and a daddy orc love each other very much.
I'm more interested in the fact that orcs love. I mean, that's,
I can't imagine that that's what it is.
When a mommy orc and a daddy orc hate each other slightly less than they hate other orcs, maybe that can happen.
When they can tolerate each other's presence for more than 10 minutes whilst naked. Oh gosh, just
please stop. Please
where's
stop.
the mind bleach?
And can it take less than 10 minutes, please? Can it be over in a few minutes? Oh, well, that went south quickly.
That as I'm sure everybody knew it would. Live event, folks.
Yeah, I mean, it does happen the old-fashioned way. That is how baby orcs are made.
Yeah.
It does seem, if we go by the Silmarillion, it does seem that the first orcs were corrupted elves.
Right. Canonically, that's the thing. But like you were going to say, Tolkien spilled a lot of ink.
Yeah, he did.
And I think at the end of his life, he would say they were
corrupted men. And then he just never got around to going back and rewriting the story so that that could work chronologically, which it obviously doesn't because there were orcs around before there were men.
Right.
I think the best answer that I've been able to come up with is that elves were probably the first that he corrupted, but because he was breeding orcs, I'm speaking of Morgoth here, and I think later Sauron and even Saruman, I think they just kept on being bred. And so you've got orcs and, okay, now there's men in the world, so let's breed orcs with men.
Men orcs,
and it just kind of continues on. And who knows what else was introduced into that stock to make the best orcs for fighting. Could have been anything, honestly.
I think we also have to acknowledge that, just as the elves who were twisted into orcs, it certainly wasn't voluntary.
Yeah.
I think we have to acknowledge that the mixing of orcs and humans was almost certainly not voluntary.
Yeah.
That is deeply, deeply disturbing. And I think that's one of the things that we read about. I mean, Tolkien has some characters, I'm trying to remember the exact spots, but talk about how that is one of the darkest things that Morgoth did.
Yeah.
And it really is deeply, deeply troubling.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would imagine, captivity and forced breeding programs. And it just is appalling to even consider that. I do want to touch on the kind of the other question, that was in there. It's kind of buried in there, this idea about serial longevity. Obviously, if they were corrupted elves, the first generation, you'd imagine, would have had some sort of serial longevity, but they're orcs, so they're going to die in battle, just like elves can die in battle. What happens to their spirits after is a good question.
Yeah.
They weren't willing converts. Suppose some of them might have been, and that would have been for Mandos to sort out.
Maybe some of the first were actually Avari that were fooled by Morgoth, and so maybe some of those were willing converts. But yeah, I mean, future generations would not have been.
How do the spirits of dead elves, what happens? Well, they don't automatically go to Mandos.
They float around. They float around in the physical world. They're actually called to Mandos.
Yeah,
they're summoned.
But they can refuse the call.
And Morgoth can issue a counter summons. We get that in Morgoth's ring.
Especially stronger if they served him in life.
Right.
So,
we've speculated that that's where some of the spirits that were put into the werewolves maybe came from. Maybe some of those were orc souls, but should have been elf souls.
Yeah.
that were summoned back by Morgoth. We just don't know. But I mean, Tolkien does provide enough fodder that you can kind of speculate on these things. I don't think that over time orcs would have had serial longevity. I have to think that something in the corruption, whether it was just purely something in the genes or whether it was something that just like as the corruption of their spirits sort of has an effect on the body and corrupts the body. I think over time that serial longevity ceases to be the norm for orcs.
Yeah, I would agree.
But again, Tolkien wrestled with these questions late in
lot.
life and never came up with final answers.
No, and I think but that is one reason why he might have wanted to go with the idea of orcs as corrupted men. That solves the serial longevity question altogether, and in fact makes their death a release, a gift, an opportunity.
That's a good point
for them, perhaps to live a different life someplace else. To be redeemed
after life somehow. Yeah.
To finally experience the freedom they should have experienced in life. That's quite possible. But if they're elves, I think you're right that over time, over generations, it gets to the point where the Fëa and the Hroa are entirely corrupt. The Hroa itself, it's not just the Hroa anymore. It becomes the Fëa is also corrupt. And they no longer have that serial longevity. That was an interesting question.
Very
gone a lot further
question.
south than it went. I mean, let's give ourselves a little pat on the back for
we
not
reined it
taking
in pretty quickly. I was proud of us.
Yeah, that could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
All right, next up is Pete Clark.
Hi guys, good evening, and thanks for a fantastic moot. Really enjoying it. Okay, we know that Deagol was fishing in the Gladden Fields when a great fish took his hook and dragged him to the bottom of the water, where he found the ring. This is not an everyday occurrence. So who sent the fish, if anyone, and why? If it was Iluvatar, then what did he wish to happen? I seem to recall, Alan, back in season 1, you explained some theology, which I sort of understood at the time, that providence never interferes to bring about evil. If that's true, I don't think Iluvatar would have intended that Smeagol should murder Deagol.
No.
Although clearly he could choose to do so. So, who sent the fish and why?
Is it possible that Iluvatar sent the fish for the ring to be found, but didn't count on what happened next happening? I know Iluvatar has, he's able to see all times at once. I get that. But the whole point was to get the ring out of the river.
Yeah.
So that things could happen that would eventually lead to its destruction.
True.
A couple of things could have happened. Either Deagol could have found the ring and kept the ring and turned into a golem himself, or Deagol could have kept the ring and took it back to, a village elder, and somebody would have talked to Elrond and figured out what it was, and they would have destroyed the ring, when they did, 500 years earlier or something.
500 years before, right.
Or what happened. Deagol is killed by Smeagol. Smeagol turns evil, and then the story plays out. I mean, they're all different ways to get the ring to Mount Doom, which is what Iluvatar ultimately wants.
Because right there at the bottom of the riverbed, the Third Age, Middle-earth's in danger.
Right, exactly. If Sauron finds it or someone else finds it.
Its mere existence in the open world means that it is a threat to everyone.
Yeah.
So moving it along in one way or another is, a good thing. So who moved it, or who brought the fish? I mean, really our only choices are Iluvatar or maybe Ulmo, but that would presume that Ulmo knew the ring was there, which... I mean, arguably he might have, but did they care? As we know, the Valar had by that point really, whatever happens in Middle-earth stays in Middle-earth. They've sort of taken this hands-off approach, the Las Vegas action. Yeah. So, it's either going to be Ulmo or Iluvatar. Well, I guess it's a fish, so you could include Yavanna in there. But I'm going to...
That's a good point.
Ulmo says, hey, I've got this ring and I can't do anything with it. You got a fish nearby?
I do think it's Iluvatar ultimately because
I think ultimately,
this is a SPBMI. It's the ring coming out of the river. And yes, horrible things happen to Deagol, horrible things happen to Smeagol, and horrible things happen to everyone who Smeagol interacts.
And yet Smeagol is ultimately necessary for the destruction of the ring too.
Ultimately an agent of SPBMI. Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that the point was to get the ring out of the river. And so, Iluvatar probably sent the fish. From that point on, it was the free will of Deagol and Smeagol and every other character in the story to ultimately get the ring to the fire.
That's true, because at that point you're dealing with, Deagol and Smeagol are hobbits who we know are not descendants of, but are related to men. So that means that they are not bound by the music.
Right.
And that means that they are acting with free will.
Right.
Did Iluvatar know that those were the choices they were going to make? That's where we get into the, how many angels dance on the head of a pin kind of thing. If he sees all time in a single moment, he would at the very least know that that was one possible outcome.
Yeah.
Does he know that that's the only outcome, or that that's the destined outcome? I don't know. I don't know that I can answer that.
And was it the destined outcome? Maybe Iluvatar sees multiple outcomes and just knows, okay, what I've got to do is get this ring out of the river.
Like you would see if you're looking at a river system and you're looking at all the tributaries and all the rivers that come out of it. If you're looking at it from, a helicopter 10,000 feet up, you can see all of those branches. But if you're on the river, you're only seeing the branch of the river you're on.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So, it could very well be that Iluvatar, like you said, knew all the possible options that could happen, including this. And this is the one that took. And as people exercise their free will, Iluvatar then intervenes accordingly here and there. Because eventually he intervened again, as we know, when Gollum didn't do anything with it.
Just to kind of nudge things in the right direction.
You're talking about the incident with the Gollum. I merely gave the ring a little nudge out of the door.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's all that happened. That's a fun question, though. My goodness.
It was. Thank you,
deep. Yeah, good one. Well, next up is Richard.
Becca did a great piece on Gardens in Middle-earth, and she was talking about Éowyn and her choice to move from warrior to healer. And she mentioned the phrase from World War I, Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. It is sweet and wonderful to die for one's country. And I started wondering, especially based on Shippey's book, Laughing Shall I Die, is there a connection that Tolkien might have been bringing in when he was in World War I? So he'd have known that phrase. Could Theoden's death somehow be one of those Dulce et decorum moments, or was Éowyn's a reversal of that concept? Wonder what you guys think.
Wow. I'm going to let you take the lead on this one, Shawn.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, well, I got to ponder this one.
It's a good question. I think that Tolkien was certainly aware of the Dulce et decorum est axiom mentality, however you want to put it. There is a famous World War I poem by Wilfred Owen titled that. It's originally a Latin phrase. The Roman poet Horace wrote it originally, I believe. Tolkien would have known the Latin, and he probably knew very well that there were other World War I writers that were kind of extolling that. Wilfred Owen was using it ironically, and kind of pointing out how not Dulce and how not decorum it is to die for one's country. I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like all the World War I writers, you look at people like Siegfried Sassoon, Wilfred Owen, they were all kind of reacting against that old mentality, that old idea of Dulce et decorum est. They were all kind of responding to it and kind of refuting it in a way. So I don't think that if Tolkien was refuting it, he wasn't alone.
No.
And so when we get to Éowyn specifically, I don't know that I see that mentality or that idea. I mean, to die for one's country, we see in Tolkien a lot. We see, people dying for a great cause, right? We see the Germanic thing. We see characters dying for something they believe in. So I don't think that Tolkien is against people dying for something they believe in. But I don't think that any more than any of the other writers that came out of World War I, that he believed that it's automatically a good thing to die for one's country.
Right. Even with Theoden's death, we're not seeing Theoden's death as being a death for his country. We're seeing his death as being a death for Gondor.
Yeah.
For the free peoples of Middle-earth. I mean, he does talk about, that he's going to go rest, with his fathers in the film. Of course, it says, in whose mighty presence I shall now not be ashamed, which is a great line that he delivers brilliantly. And I don't remember the book version of that line at the moment, but that's the only mention really of his people in the death scene. It's not set up in the sense that he's dying for Rohan. He's dying for Gondor. He's dying for the cause of all free people. And I think that's the cause rather than the nationalism that I think we see people like you mentioned earlier, Sassoon and Owen and some of the others who are kind of, pushing back against that. They're pushing back against that mentality that we would see in the Charge of the Light Brigade, right? Ours is not to question why, ours is but to do or die. Right. They're pushing back on that. And Tolkien would push back on that as well, I think.
I think so.
Instead of saying that, all war is bad and all violence is bad and all dying is bad, he's saying, look, death, if we take it from that Beowulfian point of view, we've got this circle of light. The monsters are out there.
Yeah.
How are we going to deal with that? Well, you're going to stand, you're going to fight to the last second. You're going to fight with your last breath. And that's what Theoden does, and that's what others do. I think it's more of the cause thing rather than the nationalism.
I think so, yeah. When you go back to something like, that idea of the northern courage, right? Which, of course, the Rohirrim are the greatest examples of that northern courage that Tolkien talks about in Beowulf, the Monsters, and the Critics. It's not about dying for country. It's about dying for humanity, dying for civilization to fight the monsters. And that's what Theoden is doing. And you kind of captured that when you said he's not dying for Rohan, he's dying for Gondor, Yeah.
That changes the cause dramatically, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think it does. It's not about dying for your country anymore. It's dying to create a better world. And I think that's probably something that Tolkien and Owen and Sassoon and everybody who survived World War I saw, that World War I was not creating a better world. No. It was a horribly destructive force.
Yeah. So going from that macro view of it's not just my nation, it's the world, or it's this larger cause, I also want to point out the idea that Tolkien would very much have seen the idea of dying for your brothers, for your friends, to be a good thing as well. So we're skipping the nation state, both on the top side and on the bottom side. We're going bigger than that and smaller than that. I think of Beorhthelm, or of Beorhtnoth, Beorhthelm's son, and how Tolkien takes him to task for being, this overly chivalric sort of idea of allowing the Vikings to come over and fight them the way they did. He points out that it was his responsibility to protect his men.
He let those men die.
He let those men die because of his foolishness.
Stupid decision, yeah.
And it's, his responsibility wasn't just to his nation, to his king. It was, but his loyalty was to his men, and he failed that loyalty.
That's an interesting thought, that we see loyalty to friends. We see that sort of fellowship thing. You can die for the people closest to you. You can die for humanity. You can die for this great cause. But
in the middle.
Yeah, in the middle, there's no die for one's country. There's not that kind of...
Yeah, we don't see that, do we?
No, we really don't. And when you think to some of the stuff that he says in his letters about how he's an anarchist, right? And not the whiskered men, not with the bombs type of anarchist. He's not the Guy Fawkes type of anarchist, but he was skeptical of nationalism, probably because he lived at a time where he saw nationalism turn to its most horrible weaponized form during World War II. So
yeah, both as a young man and as a father. Yeah. I mean, you read his letters to Christopher and you really get a flavor for that.
Yeah.
So, great question.
That's an excellent question, though, and one I wasn't quite prepared for. So hopefully we did all right with
it. I'm sure we did fine. Well, next up we have Steve in Connecticut. Steve.
Hello. In the books, right, we've got the Red Book of Westmarch, right, which is written by characters in the book, and it's presumably passed down to us today in translation, right? But I get in the context of the story, it's written by Bilbo, then it gets handed to Frodo to continue, and then to Sam. Do we have any indication in the real world, like if J.R.R. Tolkien and Christopher Tolkien, how did they consider their own passing of the custody of the Legendarium in this fashion? Like, did they think of it in that way? Like they're kind of passing the book on to the next generation to continue?
I don't know if J.R.R. Tolkien saw it that way. I know Christopher saw it that way based on the things that he's written in terms of his job as the literary executor. He felt a tremendous burden to get as much of those works out there.
Yeah.
So there's very much from that sense. I don't know, Shawn, do we have anything in the letters that suggests that? Or
I thought that J.R.R. had asked Christopher to get some of this stuff published, didn't he? I mean, he asked his son to do what he could, didn't he? To get it out there?
Yeah.
I can't remember where that is, but I feel like this was a task that Christopher felt his father wanted him to do. It's not like he just did it on his own.
No.
So while I don't think we have J.R.R.'s words on it specifically as to whether he thought of it like that, but he definitely, he named his son Christopher his literary executor, not the other two sons, not his daughter. Right. He named his, specifically his third son. Mm-hmm. And we know that Christopher kind of followed in his footsteps as a medievalist. And so J.R.R. must have felt, well, we know that he felt a special kind of connection to his third son. He felt that they were kindred spirits in a way. So I would speculate he probably did feel like he was passing it down to his son in that way, very much like Bilbo to Frodo.
Yeah.
I see no reason to think that he wouldn't do that. I don't have his own words to go on to tell me that he thought that, but as a father myself, if you've got a child who seems to kind of be following in your footsteps and is your biggest fan, because Christopher was his father's biggest fan.
Very much so. Yeah.
I would be willing to bet that J.R.R. thought of it that way. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. We just don't have his words like we do Christopher's own words. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before we continue with more questions, we do want to take a moment to remind you to visit our website, theprancingponypodcast.com.
Yeah, we have all the good stuff there. We've got show notes, outtakes, Prancing Pony Ponderings, as well as our online storefront where you can get PPP shirts, mugs, stickers, and more.
And of course, one of the best resources we have there is our library page. After all, we love the books here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, and we want to make sure you can get your hands on any of the books we mention here.
Yeah, we may talk about a lot of different Tolkien-related stuff on the podcast, but at heart, Alan and I are fans of Tolkien's books and books about Tolkien. That's why we have the library page, with links to every book we've mentioned on the show.
Now, we do make a few pennies from your purchases you make from those links, so thank you for your support. Well, folks, now we're back live in the virtual common room for more questions from our Moot attendees here with us. Shawn, who's our next guest?
Our next one is Zara Williams.
Hi, Zara.
Hello. So this is just a silly question.
Great.
But
we love silly questions. Tired of the serious ones.
If you could have dinner with any one Legendarium character, who would it be and what would you order for them?
And what would I order for them? If I get to order, I might have dinner with Feanor just so I can make him eat something really nasty, but no, probably not. Shawn, what?
That's a good and appropriately petty answer from you. I love
it. I'd have to give him, it would have to be something stuffed, right? The idea of like a food version of a piñata.
Sure, why not? Yeah.
I don't know. I couldn't sit at dinner with the guy for 10 minutes. Go ahead, Shawn. I'll think of the serious answer while you're doing it.
Oh, man. I want to have dinner with Faramir and Éowyn. I know you said one, but I think they would be a fun couple to have.
Well, they're married now, so they're one. That works. And
exactly,
the thing is, you took the steam right away from me because, of course, Faramir is my favorite Legendarium.
That's what happens when you let me go first. Yeah, I think so. What would I order for them? I think I'd order them both a nice steak. A really nice ribeye steak.
Ribeye? Okay. Yeah, good, flavorful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rack of ribs, maybe.
Honestly, if I could, I would cook it for them myself.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'd do some cooking.
I'd go ahead and cook them a steak.
You wouldn't smoke them a rack of ribs? You're better at smoker, aren't you?
I am better at smoking. That is true. Yeah, but I don't know. I kind of feel like Faramir is more of a steak guy. Éowyn probably can get down on some barbecue, but...
Yeah, that's true. She's from Rohan, so she's probably used to just,
Yeah, eating with her hands and stuff like that.
Right.
But then again, I mean, I don't know. It'll be some sort of meat cooked outside, and it'll be.
Of course, it would be.
Let's go there.
I mean, it's our show, so of course it's going to be some meat cooked outside. I think, as much as I would like to join that Faramir and Éowyn dinner, because I want to say somebody different, I would like to sit down with the 4 hobbits from the Shire, with Frodo and Sam and Merry and Pippin, and just have a hobbit feast under the party tree.
A nice mushroom stew?
Probably not. I'd introduce them to some good barbecue.
Yeah.
So,
because we discussed this before, hobbits don't have barbecue in the Shire, do they?
No, I don't think they do. Yeah. All right. That was a fun question, though.
Super fun question.
I love that.
All right. Well, our next question comes to us from Graham Cheadle.
Yeah.
Graham.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you for a great mood so far.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Graham.
My question for you is, and I'll preface it, I guess, by saying whether or not it may be wise to do more film adaptations, and setting aside the question of film rights or whatever might be in the Amazon series and things like that. If you knew they were going to make an adaptation of First Age Tales in a film, and it was going to be a series of movies rather than one long movie, which First Age story would you like to see in a film adaptation?
Oh, man.
Do I really need to answer this one out loud? Because I'm pretty sure everyone listening knows what I'm going to say.
Everybody listening is wondering why you didn't pick him for dinner, but go ahead.
I don't know that Eärendil would be a good dinner guest. I don't know.
He'd just sail in, eat, and sail back out.
Yeah, I don't see him sticking around for conversation. He's not down to earth, literally.
Oh,
I know, that was terrible. Yeah, of course, it's the fall of Gondolin and Eärendil. That's what I'd like to see as a movie.
Yeah, boy, I would go see that movie 1,000 times over. There's no doubt about it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there's so many good first age tales.
There are. I mean, I could just as easily say Baron and Luthien, but
that's what I was going to say. I think the idea of a movie or a TV series adaptation starting with Barahir and the 12 Companions, in the wilds of Dorthonion being hunted down by Morgoth and his orcs.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the Baron and Luthien tale. Phenomenal. That would make a great film.
They're both great. I think, if I do say so myself, they're both great answers. Honestly, I would say the third one would be The Children of Húrin. I mean, all of the great tales would lend themselves to, but it would be a great movie. Probably a better opera.
It would even be a great movie with The Flight of the Noldor. Let's be clear. Watching Feanor give his speech in a darkened Tirion and, persuading these elves to come and rebel with him. And I'm just picturing the scene where Mandos himself stops them and gives them the doom of the north. And some of them turn around and some of them keep going. And then the crossing of the Helcaraxe and the burning of the ships. I mean, wow, that's just cinema right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know there's too many stories that wouldn't work well.
Of Beleriand and its realms might not be a very compelling movie.
No, that would just be a documentary series.
Yeah. But I would totally watch that documentary, actually.
Oh, in a heartbeat. Yeah. Well, according to Jordan, our next guest is the Tolkien professor, Corey.
Oh my gosh. Corey, are you out there?
Good evening, guys.
Good evening, sir. How are you tonight?
Welcome.
Good. Yeah. Good. Hey, so I have a question from something we've been talking about in exploring the Lord of the Rings lately, and you'll be interested to hear that we are almost done with the Council of Elrond now.
It was 2 years ago you were on our show and you were about to get there.
Yeah. No, the pandemic, we've lasted entirely through from one end of the pandemic to the other on the Council of Elrond. I predict we're going to finish in less than a month and a half from now.
Wow.
It's amazing. Excellent. But recently we've just gotten up to the practical discussion, towards the end.
Yeah.
And Boromir's very practical. Right. And Boromir's very practical suggestion that they should use the ring, which is, of course, absolutely a question somebody needed to ask because it seems perfectly obvious. Yeah. And we've been talking about the Elven Ring discussions that happen afterward. When Glóin sort of presses them about the Elven Ring, I love the line, "I see elf lords here." That's such a good line, right?
That is.
It's he's being really diplomatic. He's basically sort of saying come on now, there's got to be an elf ring in the room as we're speaking, right? I mean, come on, at least one of y'all, Elrond, Glorfindel, somebody has an elf ring. But he's not, he's not calling him out or anything, but he's sort of pointing. Anyway.
Right.
So then, of course, they have and Elrond gives his answer about the elf rings and yells at it, rebukes Glóin for not paying attention, which, by the way, I totally don't think it was inattentiveness. I totally think that Glóin was kind of digging at him. But anyway,
I think he was,
yeah. Point is, we've had several long conversations about the elf rings, and it's just the more I've thought about it, as we've been going through these passages really carefully, and we've been discussing this for several weeks now, the more I can't help but feel like the elf rings were just a bad idea from day one. And the more I think about it, the worse of an idea it seems, and I'm just wondering what you guys think about that. I mean, yes, the rings are untainted by Sauron, right? I mean, that's the thing that Elrond is so quick to emphasize. And yet even the untainted usage of them, right? It's not that they're bad. It's not that they're doing evil, right? But that ultimately, at the very least, the desire that is being served, it seems, by the elf rings is the desire of the elves to, as Elrond says, to preserve all things unstained, right? Yeah. But guys, you can't do that in Middle-earth. That's done. That is gone ever since the rising of the sun. So in doing that, they're swimming against the tide, at least of what the Valar have put into place, if not Ilúvatar himself. And that just seems like a super bad idea. And no surprise that not much good really comes of it. I mean, some good comes of it. I mean, you can't say Lothlorien and Rivendell are bad things. And Gandalf, of course, employs his elven ring very differently, and I think it's not hard to argue most constructively of all of the elf rings. But anyway, I just wondering what you guys think about the elf rings, and if either of you would be interested in staging a defense for the Celebrimbor project, or if you agree with me about them being kind of not shady, but just a poor idea from day one.
I think they were a power that should never have been given into the hands of the children of Ilúvatar.
I agree.
Elf or man.
I mean, shady, I think you're right. That's maybe not the word, but
Yeah.
I'd say self-serving.
Yeah.
These are rings designed to work against nature, to
Yeah.
work against what was intended and what was fated to happen. It's look, I'm not saying you have to be happy about the music, but
Right.
this has been written.
Yeah.
And, to fight against that is only going to cause bad things. I mean, certainly Tolkien talks about that in his letters, doesn't he?
Yeah, he calls it their temptation. I mean, the fact that he uses that word temptation, that indicates that, he knows that they were giving into something they shouldn't have given into by using the rings.
One is
that
not
way.
tempted to good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, I do think that it was one of those things that, maybe it seemed like a good idea at the time, Celebrimbor's project did. But yeah, all it did, I mean, and I say, honestly, you could say the Celebrimbor project in the same tone that you could say the Manhattan Project, right?
Yeah.
And I know there's no allegory, I know all that, but I mean, there is something there that it has kind of opened the door to this power that elves should never have had. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting, Corey, as you said, that Gandalf uses his ring more productively than Elrond or Galadriel do. And yeah,
he's using it for a different purpose, though. He's not using it to preserve. He's using it to inspire.
Right. And what I realize about that is that Elrond and Galadriel are using their rings to, again, halt the flow of time, kind of keep things in stasis. They're kind of using their rings maybe almost, I don't know if passively is the right word, but they're using their rings for inertia, right? They're using their rings to keep things the way they are. Whereas Gandalf is actually using his ring for action. He's using it to kindle hearts and to change things.
Positive change instead of
as opposed to halting,
resist things.
Exactly.
Boy, that's key, isn't it? Right there.
It is. And until you put it that way, I hadn't really thought about it like that. But I do think that the way Gandalf uses that ring, not only is it not a geographical effect like we see on Rivendell and Lothlorien, we've talked about that he doesn't have a realm that he's protecting the way Elrond and Galadriel do. But not only is that different, but he's also using it in a positive, active way, such as they are not. And I wonder if it's because he's one of the Maiar and he has a greater wisdom in terms of what the best way to use that power is. That's a fantastic question, though. I love that.
That is a great question, and it's a lot of fun to look at that. You don't want to say it was a mistake, but it's sort of like asking the question about, was it a mistake for the Valar to bring the elves to Amon? Well, yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was.
Kind of.
I mean,
but we don't want to really say that because good came out of it.
But it seemed like a good idea at the time, and some good came out of it.
Right.
And I guess you could say the same thing about the Three Rings, couldn't you?
You really could.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been better had they not been made. It would have been better had they not been made. So yeah, I guess that means it was a mistake. Poor old Celebrimbor. Still didn't deserve to be a pincushion, though.
No, he did not.
No,
or a battle standard.
Or you ever thought about the poor orc whose job it is to hold the battle standard with a dead body on the other end of it? I mean, that's gonna.
Do we know that it was an orc?
That's gonna weave all over the place, man.
I mean, maybe it was a troll. A troll could probably.
That's true. A troll could have done it. Yeah. Or maybe it's like there's a triangular base. You've got 3 orcs, each carrying one. No, anyway. Sorry.
That is a lot of engineering.
That is grim. That is
something
grim.
very cruel.
I know.
But
seriously.
it is Sauron, so why not?
Exactly. Well, let's see. Looking at the list that Jordan's got for us, next up is Joe B. Joe.
Hey, thanks for taking my question.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Thank you,
What
Joe.
do you have for us?
So I have a question about fate and free will, specifically how it relates to Elros. So in a recent episode, Dr. Flieger said that elves are bound by the music. So certainly both Elrond and Elros were bound by the music due to their Maya and Elvish ancestry. Question was, when Elros chose the human path, was he actually granted the free will to do so, or was he executing a theme in the music? And then furthermore, once the choice was made, did he become unbound to the music? Then by extension of that, if he remained bound to the music, were his descendants equally bound, which would then imply that the descendants of the kings of Numenor, like Aragorn, have partially fated outcomes as determined by the music, while the other races of men that did not have the elven blood, like the Rohirrim and the Umbars, truly had free will.
Like more free will. You know how we talked about the distinction of elves having different degrees of free will. I like that initial question. I'm going to answer the second question first. I don't think once he made the decision to become a man that he was bound by the music anymore. I think along with that gift of death comes the same free will that men have. So I'm going to say, from my position, after he made the choice, he was no longer bound by the music. But that first question, that threshold question, is really interesting.
Was he fated to make that
choice? That is an intriguing question. Did he really have free will in making the decision to be a man or an elf? Or was that part of the music? Wow, that's a good one.
I definitely agree with your answer to the second question, Alan. I would have said the same thing. Once he makes that choice to be a man, he gets everything that goes with it. He gets mortality, and he gets the freedom to shape his life beyond the music.
That's right. You don't get what's behind door number 2 if you don't also get what's behind door number 1.
Right. We talked about how those two things go hand in hand.
Yeah.
I would argue that none of us, no human being, is completely free of the music.
No, of course. The music's around us, even if we have an impact on it. Yeah.
The music is still at work on the lives of humans. Tolkien just says that men have a degree to shape their lives beyond it, not that they're not affected by it at all.
Right.
So I just want to be really careful with that. We're not saying that he's not bound by fate at all. There are going to be some things that are fated by the music. But once he becomes a man, I think Elros and his children, all the kings of Numenor, all the kings of all the Numenorians, they're humans. They're men at that point. So right down to Aragorn, all of them are men and they have that free will.
But boy, that first question.
But that first question, man, that's a tough one. I tend to think that if we just take Tolkien's words at face value, they're given the choice. So
yeah, that's true.
They must be making the choice. But then again, you can go back to things like Feanor being an elf, making the choice not to give over the Silmarils. And if he's an elf, is he bound by the music to do that?
But we've talked about that as being a reaction to the elves can't change the circumstances that they're found in, but they can change their reaction to their circumstances.
Right.
That was something that Dr. Flieger pointed out in Splintered Light.
It was,
So one could argue that, for example, Feanor in that moment could have chosen to give over the Silmarils. It was fated that Melkor and Ungoliant were going to successfully kill the trees and take the Silmarils, perhaps. But then what's the reaction?
Yeah.
So, but boy, that opens up a whole nother can of worms. Taking Tolkien's words at face value, that they were given a choice.
I think so.
That, it was an option to make that decision. I've got to say that it's more likely than not that Elros was able to make that choice freely. He was not fated to make it.
I think so. I think there's something in that mannish nature that they had that gives them that ability to make that choice. And I mean, that's partly why they were given the choice and they were told to make a decision and okay, that's it. Yeah. Now, once you've made this decision.
That's true. Yeah, it's an irreversible decision.
Yeah, because they kind of hacked the code of Arda, right? They were doing things. There are things in their nature that weren't really supposed to be there.
Right.
And I don't want to go down the road of how is that even possible? Because I don't think we have time for that. But it is sort of presented as well, look, this is not the way things are supposed to be. We're not supposed to have people who are part man, part elf. So make a choice, be one of these two things, and that's going to be your fate. But I think that the fact that they were there and they are kind of they've hacked the Matrix a little bit.
The Matrix,
maybe that's why they were able to make that choice, even though they still had elvish blood in them.
Yeah, I think that works. Well, our next guest is Jennifer Mello, but she is actually having us read something from chat. And I believe, Shawn, this one is for you. It's not a question other than to say, please perform this, Dancing Monkey Shawn.
All right. Well,
Here we go.
I'm the guy with the Gollum voice, apparently. So all right.
And then she does have a question for us after that.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer.
There once was a creature named Gollum, who was awful at having folks follow him. His GPS voice causes us to rejoice. So thanks for this pod, best of all of them.
I love it.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you.
Well done, Shawn, and thank you, Jennifer. Her actual question in chat is, if you lived in Tolkien's universe, which character would you be that you personally identify with? Oh, man.
Wow.
Is this where, once again, I say how much I love Faramir, but I'm clearly not him? I'm some poor schmuck, on the ground level of Gondor, making horseshoes or something. I mean, well, Shawn, I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that one. Do you have off the top of your head, who would you be? Who do you personally identify with?
Oh, man. I kind of feel like the herb master in the houses of healing sometimes, you know, the guy who just like people ask him a question and he answers the question like 12 different ways in like 4 different languages with like etymologies. And yeah, I kind of feel like that guy sometimes, just because, only because I kind of feel like, you know, sometimes, you know, you folks have heard me talk for 210 episodes now. I mean, sometimes you ask me a question and I just go on and on.
On and on and on. That's okay. That's why I brought you here.
That's the one that I tend to identify with. No, I guess seriously, of like the main characters, probably Merry. I really like Merry out of all the hobbits. I kind of just feel a kinship with Merry. You know, he's a hobbit, and I do feel like there's a lot of hobbity awesomeness that I identify with. But Merry, he's the one who's going to talk about the history of pipeweed and stuff like that. And I kind of feel like a Merry sometimes.
That probably makes me Pippin, but I think I would imagine
I wouldn't say that, actually. I would not say that.
Well, mostly because Pippin's young, and we all know I'm not.
You said it.
Well, if I didn't, you would. So, you know, there's something about Farmer Maggot I like.
Really?
You know, he's just down to earth.
Yeah.
Sees through things, figures things out.
That's
He's not
a good
fooled.
one.
He's, practices hospitality. He's,
let you in his house. He'll give you a good meal, take you in, treat you like family. Yeah, I can see
absolutely. I can see that. And I definitely see myself more as a hobbit than I mean, as much as I like the idea of living in Gondor, I very much see myself as more of a hobbit type. So
as much as I, may style myself the Lord of the Mark. I mean, I don't
know. I'm certainly not the man of the
there's
West.
There's not much Rohirrim in me, folks.
There is no Aragorn in me, clearly. All right. Well, let's see. Who is next up?
Okay, so our next one is Sarah from Kansas.
Yeah, sorry. I was trying to do too many things at once. I turned the recording on my phone, but didn't unmute myself.
That's all right.
So I was asked you to do the Gollum voice, but instead I'm going to ask you that question. Ask it and answer it, please. We all want to know what that question is.
Oh, the question we keep alluding to? That we're hoping somebody will ask us?
Well, fair enough.
Okay.
Shawn, do you want to ask it and I'll start answering it?
Yeah, well, we were just thinking maybe somebody out here might ask what our plan for the future is. You know, what we're planning to do for the next few seasons of Lord of the Rings, and then where we're going after Lord of the Rings, and whether we had anything else planned.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that. I know we've touched on it before, but I think it's clear that we're going to finish the Lord of the Rings. We'll be done with that in about 3 more years. And that includes the appendices in Return of the King, because we're going to make book 6, and the appendices will be 1 season, I think.
I think that'll work. Yeah,
I think that'll work, but maybe it won't.
We reserve the right to do a whole season on just the appendices.
That's all right, or at least half a season.
And hopefully Corey Olsen will be proud.
What are you kidding? He's doing 12 years on the appendices, Shawn.
I know, but it's still it's pretty good for us to spend a whole season on the appendices.
That would be pretty impressive.
We're getting more Corey-ish.
We're getting better.
You're right.
We definitely want to spend a season on other legendary material. So that would be things that we would just pull sort of at random from Unfinished Tales, from the history of Middle-earth. I know that we want to do the Arthur-Beth. I know we want to do, sorry, I'm drawing a total blank.
I mean, there's
a Second Age, the tale of
Aldarion and Arendis.
Thank you.
Yeah, we definitely want to do that one.
Yeah.
We would like to do... Gosh, what else?
Well,
I mean, we talked about doing something on like the whole statute of Finwë and Miriel.
Exactly. So we want to do a season of extra legendarium things, and then we want to do a season, at least possibly 2, of non-legendarium stuff, where we talk about everything from Smith of Wooten Major to Leaf by Niggle to Rover Random, Mr. Bliss. We could visit Finn and Hengist and the Fall of Arthur and Tale of Kullervo. And I mean, there's so much that's not legendarium, the Adventures of Tom Bombadil, that we'd love to cover.
Yeah.
And then I think, we've talked about this before, but we really are pretty set on revisiting the Silmarillion and doing it another time with all of this in our back pocket, knowing what we know now, and not trying to redo the episodes really, but
take a fresh look at it to dig a little bit deeper. I mean,
I think so.
We were new to this at the time, and it's not. I don't think we're anything but proud of what we did the first time around. But still, our approach has changed, and the more time we've spent with Tolkien's texts, the more we've been able to find in them, and really, in some ways, the Silmarillion is the most complex one, and so I think it would be good to go back to it with all the knowledge we've gained along the way. So I think. Honestly, I think it's true of all of Tolkien's works that if you go back to them after a few years, you see different things. Your perception of them changes, and I think that'll happen to us when we go back to the Silmarillion.
I think so too.
We do have to stop somewhere. You know, I mean, we can't just go back into the Hobbit and then go back and do Lord of the Rings again. But we can't do that.
But I mean, that plan takes us at least 7 more years, maybe 8.
Probably 8 years, I think, is
probably 8 years.
Yeah, what I was thinking.
Because we're thinking that Silmarillion thing would be a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably 8 more years of the show. So, you know, it's going to be a long road, and we're looking forward to it. But I do want to say we have one other plan in place.
Mm-hmm. For the nearer future.
For the very near future, presumably, hopefully later this year, we are going to launch a second separate podcast branded. We don't know what the name's going to be, but it'll be brought to you by the PPP, or it'll be the PPP Presents or something like that. And it will be a 30-minute or so long reaction show to each episode of the Amazon TV show. The objective is to watch the show immediately upon release, take a few notes, talk the very next day, record a 30-40 minute session, minimal edits, and get it out within 36 hours of episode release. So it doesn't fit with our current production schedule. There's no way we could make that a segment on our show. Right. And we think that really gives us an opportunity to reach out and bring new fans into Tolkien. There's going to be a lot of people interested in this TV show just because of what it is. And our hope is that with this new show, people will immediately come and find that, and we can use that platform to direct people back to the PPP itself.
Get people into the books and get people into all the scholars that we reference, and just bring more people into this larger Tolkien community. I think we have a chance to do something really cool there. And
the timing is pretty amazing.
And, we're still working out the details, but I think,
all the details.
We want it to be not just another reaction show. We want it to feel like us. We want it to be, we want it to be Alan and Shawn very much, but it's going to be a new way of working for us. So we're both kind of looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Very compressed timeline. I mean, these days, I start outlining a chapter, Shawn, about 3 weeks before we start recording the first episode.
Yeah.
We send out any research that needs to be done. And then about a week ahead of the episode, I send you usually the document after you've come up with whatever the bag questions are going to be.
Yeah.
Then we record and we send it to Jordan. He sends us an edit. We listen to it, send it back with notes. He gives us a final. It is a long process.
We've always got multiple episodes in various stages in the pipeline. That's just the way our production schedule works. We're prepping for one while we're editing the one from a few weeks before, and it's like
and then listening to the released one so that we can, because we did that a month and a half ago, and we want to be able to engage with you about the current episode
when the episode comes out. So it will be very different for us, and like Alan said, it's going to be really quick turnaround. And I mean, we want to be current.
It's a TV show.
3 days after the episode comes out, nobody's going to be interested.
No,
so we need to get it out quickly, and so that's going to be fun.
It is. It is going to be
fun and a new challenge for us. So hopefully you all are excited about it. We are certainly excited about it.
We are. Well, I know we're coming up on the end of this event, so everybody, we want to thank you for the great questions, and we want to thank you for joining us at our first ever PPP Moot.
And to everyone who's listening at home, please keep listening, and we'll let you know when the next Moot is.
That's right. Now, in the meantime, we hope you can join us next week. Gimli has just come back from a recent spelunking excursion and wants to tell us all about it. And until then, don't forget the talk continues all night long at the Prancing Pony.
That's right. Our amazing listener community, a few hundred of whom are with us online right now, keeps the conversation going in all of our social media spaces. At our common room on Facebook, you'll find comments, questions, corrections, and more on every episode, as well as updates from us throughout the week. Just look for the Prancing Pony Podcast on Facebook.
Now, be sure to please follow the page and join the group. The page is a great way for us to do some one-way communication, letting you know what's going on with the show. But the group gives you a chance to discuss Tolkien with your fellow listeners.
And of course, we also have some really good discussions going on over on Reddit. You can find us there at r/Prancing Pony Pod. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, both with the handle at Prancing Pony Pod. And if you're enjoying the show, please share us, and please consider giving us a review on Apple Podcasts.
Now, if you want exclusive content like postscripts, full bonus episodes, live Discord events with Shawn and me, and episodes without digital ads, then check out patreon.com/Prancing Pony Pod, where you can support the show by joining the fellowship of the podcast. For now, though, folks, that wraps it up for another episode. But be sure to join us again next week when we get back to the text and the first of our 3 episodes on the road to Isengard.
And as always, we want to take a moment to thank some truly important people. That's our patrons at the Kier Dance contribution tier. I'll start with DeMay in Alaska, James in Virginia, Tamsin in Minnesota, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Bruce in California, Mario in Utah, Seth in Texas, B in California, Joseph in Texas, and Kathy from North Carolina.
And we have Lori from Washington, Josh in Oklahoma, Carlos in California, Brian from the UK, Cameron in Nevada, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, Nick from Wisconsin, Paul from Buckland, and Ryan from Alaska. Thank you all so much for your support. And we also want to thank the team that helps make this show better. Our research assistants, as well as our barliman, Becca Davis, and producer Jordan Rennells, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, and our website guru Phil Dean.
This show would not be what it is without our supporters and our teammates, so thank you all.
Yeah.
Now, be sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe to the show through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
And one last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, your reflections on the first PPP Moot to Barliman at theprancingponypodcast.com.
Now, Barliman is a whole lot more reliable these days than he used to be, but we do get a lot of mail. So we'll get to you as soon as we can, and your question or comment may be featured on a future episode.
Now, as always, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time,
farewell, friends.